Welcome to Permission to Thrive. I'm your host, Suzi Lula. As a spiritual therapist for over 20 years, I have the honor and privilege of ushering women and mothers just like you on a journey from simply surviving to powerfully thriving. I also have the honor of raising our son, Will, who is now a young adult, with my longtime partner, Jamie, so I'm right there on the journey with you. Consider this your personal sanctuary, your space to meet your heart, embrace your messy, and come home to your most authentic, extraordinary self. My hope is that you leave resourced and inspired because you are here to shine. Welcome to Permission to Thrive. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Permission to Thrive. And this week, you're in for a treat because I have my friend, colleague, sister mom with us, Reverend Dr. Julie Moret. So welcome, Julie. So happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm excited. I love all the topics, so I'm so ready.
Yeah, we ready to dive in, everybody.
Yes.
So I'm going to read your formal bio and then we will dive in. So for those of you who are just getting to know Reverend Dr. Julie Moret, she is the author of this amazing book called What's Your What? How to Ignite Your Unique Brand. And you are an accomplished international speaker and teacher. You hold degrees in a wide range of healing modalities, most of which I am obsessed with, including neuro-emotional therapy, Qigong, psychology, neuro-linguistic programming, and clinical hypnosis. You were knighted by the Order of the Orthodox Knights of St. John Russian Grand Priory alongside Jack Canfield, Don Miguel Ruiz, Michael Bernard Beckwith, and Lisa Nichols. So Julie knows a few things. And here's the pièce de résistance, everyone. Julie's purpose and passion is sharing easy-to-use tools and practices to soothe our central nervous system and regulate our emotions. Who does not want that? So we may rise into a clear thinking, solution-oriented, creative brain state from which to thrive. So I love your bio. You are clearly studied. What I love most about you is what you say in your bio, that you are very studied, you are very practiced, you walk your talk, you live this way of life. And yet you're so able to, in a very easy to understand way, dive into these really sometimes layered teachings and present it in a way that we can leave this conversation more able to have better relationships with those around us and thrive in our life. So who does not want that? And I'm so excited to have you.
Oh, me too. I love tools. I love something really practical, usable, doable that I can do. And so I'm all about the tools for sure. And I just wanted to say, as we're starting, I wanted to say thank you for doing this Permission to Thrive podcast, because as I was thinking, oh my God, this makes me so teary. As I was thinking about speaking with you today, I flashed on a moment when my son was very, very young. And he had been invited to a birthday party, and it was at the beach. And I drove him over there, and when we got to the beach, he didn't want to go. He felt nervous and uncomfortable. So I told him I would sit in the car. I wasn't going to leave. And if he decides, that it's not for him, come right back. And so as I was sitting in that car in the middle of summer, boiling for 2 hours, I Google searched and looked up a parenting coach, and I listened to teachings over and over again. And it was the first time I felt like I might be able to do this thing. It was the first time I felt like, I think I can be a parent. I think I can be a mom. And so what you're doing is, it's not just a gift, but I feel like it's life-saving, for a lot of folks out there that are listening, because, I think originally people could only get to you by having private one-on-one sessions. And now we can get this wisdom every week or however often that is, it's available. You're available and the tools are available. And that moment so many years ago was a life-giving moment for me. So thank you for doing what you're doing. I know that so many people that find you and that are on here are just, it like gives them the breath of hope and the tools to be able to thrive, you know?
Wow. Wow. I thank you so much for that because I know for me, a lot of these
We're
teachings and my
1 minute
work.
in and I'm crying. Okay.
Well, I'm crying. I'm crying. I'm so touched, and this is why we do what we do because, I don't know about you when you're describing that moment, but our kids are a little older now, and I know back when Will was young, there was not a lot
No.
there was not a lot out there giving women and specifically mothers even a vision, much less permission that you can do this thing and you can thrive while doing said thing.
Right. Right.
So I also really deeply appreciate the reflecting back. It's so interesting to hear how different things come into our laps at the right time. And for everyone listening, if there's
Mhm.
even a kernel of thought in your mind of like, yeah, well, Susie and Julie can do it, but I don't know about this whole thriving thing and parenting and going to my job and the and. It is possible, and may this conversation just enrich you all to know this for yourselves as well, because there really isn't a lot out there giving. The time is now for
Yeah.
women and mothers to hear that we have permission. It's not only permission, it's our mandate to step in and embody, if not now, when. So may we all in sisterhood like dive in together on this.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, you've got your book, you have a parenting book, you've got a class at Agape International and other places. And like there's all these resources now. So it delights my heart to know that there are resources for sure.
Mm, thank you. And so we have so many areas to dive
I know.
into. I can't wait to dive into speaking all things brain. But
Yes.
before we do, I'm just curious in your experience working with clients or yourself, your family, why do you think that it is so challenging, even now with the resources that you're saying is available? Why do you think that it's so challenging for us women, us mothers, to really give ourselves permission to thrive? I didn't name this
Mhm.
podcast accidentally.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's super layered. And I think there is kind of insidious messaging that some women, not all, but certainly I received very early on in life. I think as a very young child, I really got the message that being a damsel in distress is kind of the way to get a guy. And being like a little bit helpless and like a smidge pathetic would work well for me. Um, so I think there was some messaging there, like the messaging wasn't around being a strong, badass female, for me at least. And I remember in my 20s, in my early 20s, I went on a date one time and I really liked this guy. And I knew ahead of us getting together, I was making really good money. So I knew I probably made more money than him, but I didn't mind that. And as the date went on, I could watch his brain like
Mhm.
calculating and realizing I was doing very well in life and I could feel him leaving,
Mhm.
like energetically leaving me. So that kind of reiterated another like, maybe thriving, maybe I won't be able to have a great relationship. It took me many years to find my husband and find a man that's comfortable and seated in his own power and can support my thriving. But I think that was messaging I got early on about thriving. I think thriving also can feel a little scary to me.
Mhm.
You and I both speak at the Agape International Spiritual Center, founded and directed by Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith.
Mhm.
And, it's a big platform. We stream to over 100 countries and territories around the world. And I have had some interesting experiences. I remember
Mm,
I was at a restaurant once and I went to the bathroom and a woman went up to my husband and said, "Are you Reverend Julie's husband?" And he said, "Yes." And she started petting his arm. And
mm,
she said, "Maybe some of Reverend Julie's magic will rub off on me." So that was kind of weird. And then I remember at one point I got a message from somebody who had seen one of my talks, and he was willing his home to me. It was in his will to give me his home. And I wrote back and said, like, "No, thanks. I'm very happily married, by the way." And he said, "I can take care of that." So that's another thing that I experienced from
mhm,
letting myself be really bright and shiny, right?
mhm, mhm,
And then also I have received a lot of messaging that if I'm really shiny, that can get me unwanted attention, which is actually how you and I connected
mhm.
prior to this podcast. I mean, we've connected around all kinds of things, like, having Spanx burning parties in our minds, and and all kinds of parenting things over the years. But the most recent one was I was receiving unwanted attention. And so there's messaging that I've received all throughout my lifetime that if I get really big, if I get really shiny, if I get really bright, it can cause people to leave me or
Mm,
not want me,
mm,
and it can be scary and it can be dangerous.
mhm,
So, a couple good reasons, good in quotes, on, keeping it dim. But even knowing all of that at this point, I am definitely far more comfortable shining. But I think what's given me that permission finally is that I feel very purpose driven. I
mm,
feel like I am to be, when I'm on stage and even in regular life, to be a surrogate for light.
mm,
That I cultivate light within me and my job is to shine it so that it becomes like a beneficial presence, a healing, a rejuvenation, a
mm,
nurturance for others. And when I stay focused in that way, that helps me move through some of the more uncomfortable things.
mm.
That was a
Brilliant.
long-winded answer, huh?
Is a great answer. I'm literally taking notes and I'm also in tears again because you're touching me so much. And you've said many really important things. So I'm going to just take a moment before we go on and break it down a little bit for everybody because I'm hoping that everybody listening, I'm sure people listening can really relate. I could relate to so many of the messages that you received in my own way. So I think that what you're saying is so accurate that we women, especially from being a little girl, we hear different messages: be nice, fit in, don't be all that. And I think what I'm hearing you say in essence is that the different messages that you received sent you into your nervous system, like it's not really going to be so safe if
Right.
I'm myself. It's not really going to be all that safe if I allow this bright light that I am, that you are, that each one listening, every one of us is born. You just look at little kids, they're these big bright lights and they know it until
Right.
until the world
Yeah.
teaches them in different ways. Oh, you best hide it a little bit. And so what you're saying is poignant because the different ways that you heard and experienced, and specifically this most recent incident that you reference, were ways of sending you a message. It's not going to really be that safe. This guy can't really keep up with you, and you're going to get unwanted attention, which you actually were. And I think one of the things about doing this podcast that I love, that I hope everyone listening will receive, is that the other thing that can really assist us women and mothers to go, okay, it's my time. I don't know how much time I have left, but for the time I'm here, like it's time to step into that light, is the sisterhood, because when you did experience recently, which that is so unnerving for us women to just innocently be out there doing our thing, living our best life, being of service, being on purpose, and then you're receiving this unwanted, unsolicited attention. At
Mhm.
least we had the sisterhood. You could make that call. I could have your back. we set intentions, we really had that intentionality, you are supported. And it
Mhm.
kind of goes back to the safety and the support that not all of us women have received growing up. And then the last thing that I want to highlight that I think is so important that you said, or the way that I heard what you said that now that you are more embodied and living a purpose driven life, that that assists you to, in essence, be the giver of the light. You see yourself,
Yes.
that's, you are here to be a vessel, you are here to be the bringer of the light. And I imagined when you said that, the sun, and
Mm.
how the sun is the giver of the light. And yes, there may be cloudy days or rainy days or hurricanes or all the things, but the sun continues to be the giver of the light. And so, what I think I'm hearing you say is that you're in a chapter of your life where you are recognizing that you are here to be the giver of something, the bringer of something, and you aren't ingesting so much. You're able, you have these tools, which we're going to dive into right now. You
Mhm.
do have these tools and practices that are allowing you to be the bringer of something rather than so much the receiver of the negativity or the unsafety that has come back to you in the past. And I appreciate that. And we share this obsession with the nervous system, with the brain. And in your bio, I wanted to just reread this last sentence of your bio for all of you listening. Please indulge me. It's such a great that Julie's purpose and passion is sharing easy to use tools and practices to soothe our central nervous system, which is what you're saying about why sometimes it's not safe to thrive, because our nervous system gets dysregulated. And then you say, and regulate our emotions so we may rise into a clear thinking, solution oriented, creative brain state from which to thrive. And I know of you that you are passionate about how these different brain states can then impact our communication, our relationships, our ability to create intimacy and closeness and connection with each other. So I would love for you to dive in and share with us, either wherever you want to start, any of your own individual awakenings around this, or any place that you feel called to just dive into this conversation about how knowing our different brain states and these practices can really affect our intimacy and relationships and connections with ourselves and
Mhm.
others.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'd like to do this by kind of weaving in the most recent experience, because this one snagged me. Like, I know a lot, I practice a lot, and I really got snagged in this one. And so what was happening is, in my work environment, I was receiving attention I didn't want from somebody. And you said this to me when I finally got around to calling you, because I had been dealing with that for about 8 months. And you said, I'm so sorry you've been suffering in silence. Because in my mind, um,
Mm,
and this is where it's so important to be able to grow and know. Like, because I feel like in a lot of ways, I do have a strong and powerful no now. But this no kind of rubbed up against my ego and how I, you know, how I want to be perceived. And I thought, I'm a minister, and this person wanted to have like a lot of physical contact with me, and I hug a lot of people. So how could I say no to this person?
mm,
Um and I thought, like, oh, I don't want him to think badly of me or not like me, or I don't want to make like all those things that I thought I was, done with. It all came up. And for about 8 months, it was
mm,
nowhere in the realm of possibility to me that I could address this in a direct way and say no. It really wasn't, which was
mhm,
shocking that at
mhm,
this point in my journey and my
mhm,
evolution, I did not have any way that felt like I could say no. And when I finally spoke, I finally, after 8 months, told you, I told my husband, and then I called you. And what I said to my husband is, like, in a court of law, he really hasn't done anything.
mm,
Like, that was what was the thing in my mind. And so my husband, from his vantage point as, you know, an employer, he was like, no, this is human resources. Like, this is a total thing. This is real. But it didn't feel real to me. And then when I talked to you, I think part of what helped open me up to even the remotest possibility of being able to handle this on my own was being acknowledged, you
Yeah.
know, and that's different when it's woman to woman or friend to friend. Because, you know, my husband's like, I'm going to get over there. I'm going to drive over. I'm going to go say hello to this person. That's how my husband wanted to address it. And so, but being able to speak it
Yeah.
and not be told what to do,
Yeah.
just for you to say, like, I hear you. I hear what you're going through. And I'm feeling all the moms that might be online, like, we feel you. It's hard sometimes. It sucks sometimes, you know, to just have that reflection of like, yeah, this is tough. This is a big one. It helped soothe my survival brain, and it
Hmm.
helped me move through the different brain states so that I could get to a clear thinking brain state. And once, with your assistance, I got to a clear thinking executive brain state, it seemed completely reasonable and necessary for me to have a no with this person.
Yeah.
And I got very congruent with it. Um, and so I'd like to to explain a little bit, share a little bit about brain states. Um, we have three primary operating modes to our brains. We've got survival brain, emotional brain, and our clear thinking, solution oriented executive brain state. That's the creative brain state. That is the brain state where every solution to every problem that exists on our planet resides already. And so everybody wants to be in that clear thinking, creative, solution oriented brain state. And all three brain states serve a purpose. For example, the survival brain, it has a place that's important and necessary. If I am wandering through an African savanna and a lion starts to size me up for lunch, really important that I have a strong survival instinct, fight, flight, you know, run, get away. Um, where survival brain becomes problematic is when it runs in a chronic, low grade manner for a sustained period of time. So many people are out there wandering around life, not even knowing that our survival brain is on. We have four primary modes to our survival brain: fight, flight, freeze, and appease. So this was new information for me. I came to this information when my son became a teenager, and I realized parenting a teen is different than a younger child. So I went head first into studying parenting techniques at that point. And I started to learn about our different brain states. And what I realized is, in the example of this gentleman, I had been in flight mode for 8 months. I just avoided him. So I would, and the cost of it is that I wasn't around people I love, because when I would be there, the people I love would all be getting together, and I would walk away because I didn't want to have that moment of him saying, "Where's my hug?" or like touching me or taking my hand or something like that. So there was a cost to it in connection and intimacy and being myself. And so survival brain works for us when we are in a real survival situation, when it runs chronically, when we are constantly in flight, when we're constantly picking fights, when we freeze up a lot, you know, when we're appeasing, no, it's okay, it's all right. I won't make any money. I won't be shiny. I'll just be like a lap dog, and then you could be the big strong person, you know, in a relationship.
I'll just give him a hug, even though everything in
I
my
said that
body
to
is,
you.
yes, even, you know.
We were talking, and I just was like, you know what? I hug so many people. I'm just gonna hug the guy. And you were like, no. So yeah, I was definitely like moving in and out of flight and
Mm,
appease and freeze at different points. And so to really break down our brain states, we've got survival brain. It works when we're in a real survival situation. It really becomes something that weighs us down when we don't know how to get out of it. So learning how to soothe the survival brain, which is our central nervous system, is key. And I'm going to give some tools for that in a moment. once our survival brain is soothed, that allows us to rise into our emotional brain. That's where all the feelings are, all the emotions. And once we're able to really feel our feelings, which is what you did with me on our phone call, I was able to just
Mhm.
speak it. All the feelings. I felt guilt and shame and embarrassment and humiliation and like all the things. I should be better than this. I should be on this. I should be more spiritual, right? Once I was able to get all of that, then we pop into a clear thinking executive brain state. That's where solutions come from. That's where I felt like, yes, I am completely okay with this. And the situation was handled. I didn't have to directly address him. He's no longer in that certain area, but I still see him and he glares at me. Like he clearly knows that I had a problem with him. So I still have to feel the feelings of not being liked and not being like, somebody doesn't think Reverend Julie is amazing. And that doesn't feel good to me.
Mhm.
But my esteem is intact. My strength inside is intact. So I would love to give a little example of how this worked in parenting, because I have a feeling we've got a lot of moms.
Oh, so
Is
juicy.
that
Yes,
okay?
please. The more
Okay.
examples, the better. I hope
Yeah.
everyone listening is like, I'm on the edge of my seat because as I'm holding a space for you, I'm also thinking of all the different ways in my life. Oh, I know that feeling of wanting to just appease or be the nice person, or just like you're saying, just shut my own self off to my girlfriends because I'm protecting myself over here. So, yeah, everybody listening, be finding examples in your own life of what Julie is describing. And then, yeah, give us a
And I'll
parenting.
layer in the tools as we go.
Yeah, and give
So,
us a parenting example for sure.
okay. So we were on a family trip with a couple other families, and I set up a wonderful horseback riding adventure for us. I grew up horseback riding. I love horseback riding. Everybody's going to go horseback riding, and it's going to be amazing. Now, my son doesn't really like horses. And at that age, I forget how old he was. He was young, but he definitely did not want to go horseback riding. But I have an agenda. I have a plan. We're all going to go and we're going to like it. And so the day came to go horseback riding, and he went off by himself and he was like, "No, I'm not going." Now, there are three other families, there are a bunch of other kids. The bus is coming, and we have to go horseback riding and like it, right? So I get on speed dial with my parenting coach, and she sends me this whole playlist. And these are the tools to move from survival brain. He was afraid to move from survival brain to emotional brain to clear thinking executive brain. So the first thing about survival brain, when you are dealing with somebody in survival mode is like a feral cat, right? You don't want to get close. You don't want to go in and hug or touch. So I found where my son was sitting off by himself. I went and sat about 8 feet away. So I'm close. I'm not abandoning him. I'm present, but he has space. Um, when somebody is in survival mode, you want to make sure their temperature is good. So if they're hot, you help them take off a layer or get cooler. If they are cold, you bring a layer, right? So I brought him, I had a sweatshirt and I kind of like tossed it over towards him, didn't hand it to him. He's a feral cat, but it's available, right? And when somebody's in survival mode, they can really be cold. So you want to make sure they're definitely warm enough. Um, I've sent you pictures of my snack trays. I am infamous for snack trays. So I brought him a little snack, made sure he's hydrated. When somebody is in survival mode, if you have young kids, some food, a beverage, those are, you want to tend to the basic physical needs. And then this is the hardest part. You have to pretend as though you have all the time in the world. I had 6 minutes. I had 6 minutes to get that kid on the bus in a good mood, because I don't want him crying. So I don't want to look like a bad mom, right? Like he needs to be good in 6 minutes. And so I do all the things to help make sure he's feeling comfortable. I'm doing my own regulating breath, right? So, and we can do that together as you're listening, just a swift breath in through the nose, and then slow, slow exhale through slightly parted lips. So I'm doing this imperceptibly with my son. It's a matching mirroring. People will often start to match the breath. So swift in through the nose, slow, slow exhale through slightly parted lips. And there's not a whole lot of talking. I am not troubleshooting. I'm not trying to come up with any answers. I'm just kind of present. Like, wow, you really don't want to do this. Like, you really don't. And then I just say, I'll do a little prompt. And he's like, I'm not going, not happening, 100% not going. And I just sat with him and I kept doing a regulating breath. And I put my jacket on. He put his sweatshirt on. Another thing you can do when you are in survival brain, or if you want to teach your child, my child now knows how to do it, is a self-petting where you take one hand to the top of one shoulder and you run it down the length of an arm. And you just do that for about 30 seconds. It triggers the release of oxytocin, that kind of cozy, yummy hormone. I'm safe. It gives the message, I'm safe, I'm okay, all is well. So I was kind of gently doing some of these gestures. And as several seconds are passing, I notice he then starts to get a little whiny. His mood changes. Now I know he's in his emotional brain. Emotional brain is like a lap dog. Okay. So at that point, I got a little closer. I think I had my hand on his foot. And then I was like, so just to clarify, like, are you afraid of the horse, or is it you just don't like it? So I'm just doing these little prompts to try and harvest some more feelings so he can feel the feelings, like what you did with me on the phone call about the guy I was getting unwanted attention with. You were asking me some prompting questions that helped me get some of the feelings out. So at this point, my son starts sharing some of the feelings. And we did that for several seconds, couple minutes. And then when somebody pops into their clear thinking brain state, you'll notice this with a child because all of a sudden they'll crack a joke, or they'll
Yes.
start looking at a beetle, or they'll start playing with a toy, or they've moved on to something else. So at some point he popped and I was like, well, my goodness, this stuff really works. And so I said, well, hey, the bus needs to leave now. How about we just get over to the ranch? And then if you still feel really strongly and you don't want to go, you don't have to go. Would you be okay with waiting for us till we get back in about an hour? And he was like, yes. So that bus ride, I was stressing. Like, he's on the bus, he's with his friends, he's having fun. So that's all great. But now I'm like, okay, when we get there, I'm just gonna like pull him aside and I'll check in with him. And I'm like going back and forth with my coach and I'm like doing all the things. And I was so stressing about it. But he's back in his clear thinking executive brain state, right? So the bus parks at the ranch, all the kids jump off and they are off. They're in the haystacks, they are playing, they're doing their thing. And so I'm like, I went to the bathroom and I'm like in talking to myself, like, how am I going to handle this? What am I going to say? I need him to get on the horse. Like that whole thing about if we get to the ranch and you don't want to go, you don't have to. Like, yeah, I said it, but like, I want him on a horse. And so I'm like preparing myself. I come out of the bathroom and my kid was on top of a horse, Susie. Everybody had gotten on horses. My kid was on the horse and he was joking with his friends. So I walk over to him and I'm like, you good? And he looked at me like he didn't even know what I was talking about.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Like,
And
what?
and so I said, I just want to make sure you're okay. And he said, yeah, I'll go today, but I don't like horses and I don't want to do this anymore. So we go on that horseback riding trip. I know he had a good time. Suzi Lula, I know he had a good time. But when we reflected on it afterwards, he was like, I did it and I don't want to do any more horseback riding trips. And can I tell you something? I have not organized another one. I've tried, but that's such a gorgeous example to break it down. When somebody is in survival mode, they are a feral cat. Our children become feral cats, our spouses, we ourselves. Thank God my husband knows this. When he can tell I'm a feral cat, he'll just like shove chocolate under the door and keep his distance for a while. And
He
so
even
when
knows the right thing to shove under the door. Like,
right. So
leads with the chocolate.
absolutely. Real quick recap. Survival brain, make sure you regulate regulating breath, swift in through the nose, slow through slightly parted lips. We as parents must be regulated. When I am not regulated, no clear interaction can happen, right? So I got to regulate myself as best I can in the moment. I know it gets really tricky and hard, but I regulate my breath. I do the self-petting. I do the make sure my temperature is good. If I'm hot, I take off a layer. If I'm cool, I add a layer. Beverages, I always model that. So I'll have a little, beverage with me, provide it for your kids or your partner. And then once the basic necessities are handled and you give it some time and space, not close contact, no touching in survival brain, then you can tell that the person's going into emotional brain. They get a little
Yeah.
whiny, they get a little, and then you can ask some prompting questions like, is it fear, or is it nervousness? Is it humiliation? Are you furious? Like, you like try to harvest some feelings. And then at that point, if it feels okay, you can reach out for a light touch, not stroking, not petting, just a solid hand on a leg or a foot or an arm. If it's received, great. If they twitch and move away, loop back and do survival brain again, right?
Yeah.
And then once you've given that some time, now you can pop into a clear thinking. And this is where it's hardest for parents, I think, because we got to sometimes drop our agenda a little bit or be flexible. There have been a lot of times where the dinner I had planned to make didn't happen, or the dishes didn't get cleaned, or, all the things didn't happen because I just needed to sit with my kid,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Or yourself. I know
Or
there
myself.
have been many dinners that didn't, or dishes that didn't get made at my house because I just needed to go do what you're saying in a different languaging of just tend to my emotions, regulate my nervous system. Sometimes one set of petting wasn't enough. Like I needed to just go sit there
Yes,
for
yes.
a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
This is really, I love, I'm don't know why I'm still forever awed by this, but I am. The coming together an intersection of science and mysticism, and science and spirituality, and science, and the way that you have described exactly what happens. You've described so articulately, really, our processing, the
Mm,
way that we can most effectively process life's experiences. And
yes.
when we learn how to process effectively, then we will more effectively be able to be and create these intimate, connected relationships with ourselves and each other, which is what we all want. So when you described what happened with you and your son, the beauty of what happened was that you, through a moment of assisting him to, you ushered him through
Hmm.
that processing of an experience that he was moving through. The byproduct is that he felt closer to you, you felt
Yes,
closer to him, you,
yes,
which is ultimately what he's going to carry when he's 15, 20, 25, 30. He's going to, we all remember the energy of our household or of our
yes.
relationships with another individual. So you gifted him that because of these steps. So there's that. And the other thing that I just find, you've said so much, and I hope everyone is taking notes. You can come back and listen to this episode again and again, because I told you guys you were going to love Reverend Julie, because you do pack a punch, because
Mm,
you said a lot and it's layered, and you can go back to the different pieces. I love that. I love, for anyone who has listened to me for half a second, you know that I love spiritual psychology and the weaving together of spirituality and the real definition of psychology, which was originally the study of the soul. And so
mm,
when I hear you speak about like the survival brain, I call it the survival self. And it's so cool that we're both talking about the same thing,
yes.
because what you're talking about with the survival brain, the way I'm hearing it is, it's our instinct to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And going to your other example, when you were receiving this unwanted attention from this individual, or when your son was in this midst of this experience that he didn't think he wanted, then it's wise for us to protect ourselves, because
Hmm.
it's wise that you were trying to keep yourself safe. from this unwanted attention, this individual. It's wise that your son was trying to protect himself from an experience that he didn't think he wanted. So I love what you're saying, and the way that you said it was something to the effect of, it's wise and it serves us
Mm-hmm.
until it doesn't. So it
Yeah.
served you, it was serving you. And my heart still breaks for you to think of 8 months of suffering in silence. So anybody listening, please send a DM, send me an email. Don't suffer in silence. We
Yeah.
women have to reach out in sisterhood. We're capable, abled women. And so often, because we're capable and abled, we tend to handle things on our own. And because you're capable and abled doesn't mean that you're needing to go through it alone.
Right.
So there's that.
And you have groups, you have community
Yes.
that people can join. So
Yes,
like, oh, yeah.
100%. Please reach out. But to your point, so it was wise of you. You were receiving unwanted attention, didn't want said attention. Your son didn't want said experience. So each of you in your own way started by self protection,
Yes.
which I always say, the survival self, the survival brain, it's wise, it's brilliant, it's finding the way.
Hmm.
And so the way that you found was, oh, instead of staying around everybody and socializing, I'll just take care of myself and leave. And that served you until, like you said, it didn't, because it was then coming at your own expense.
Yeah.
And you were shutting down from your community and your friends and your socialization. And so we chatted, we talked about the different emotions. I call that the emotional messenger system. Same
Hmm.
thing that you're talking about. Our energy, our bodies have a system. They are seeking to send us messages all the time.
Right.
And so, what often happens, like with you and with most of us, it's sending us a message that's trying to assist us to break through that old whatever happened to us in the past that
Hmm.
we might still be carrying with us. And so often it's the messiest, like you were sharing so authentically and vulnerably, like you wanted to be perceived a certain way. Who cannot relate to that? We all, nobody wants to be that girl that's causing that problem, because
Yeah.
and and so, and then there's that shame and that guilt of like, well, I don't want to be the one, and like maybe I should just hug him, and I can abandon myself for. And so these emotions, though, are seeking to do a good thing for us. They're seeking to give us messages. Julie, it's okay. You can reach out to a sister. You can reach out to support. You don't need to go through this alone. You do have a voice inside. We
Hmm.
can help you create some safety to speak your truth. And like you said, then you move into your executive functioning brain, which
Yes.
is another way of saying it, our adult self, or we can even call it our soul self, our higher self, our spiritual self, that self that is connected to something greater and larger, so that we open up to, you mentioned earlier in your bio, solutions. So when we move from state to state,
Hmm.
I see things often in spirals. So another way you're saying it is, we start cloistered and we open through these stages that you're describing. And then we become open and available to an energy that is always seeking to prompt us. And Julie, you're ready now. You can go do XYZ. And your son had the same experience. I mean, it's so
Yes.
brilliant, the two examples, parallel examples you use, because at some point he's like, I'm good. And
Yeah.
he's not going to give you, the mom, the satisfaction of saying, I'm good. I liked it. You don't get
Right.
that egoic satisfaction. But he was like, I'm good. I'm going to be with my friends. And the last thing that I'll say, I know I'm saying so much, but the last thing that I'll say, I love that you used an example with your son, because I always reference kids. And we're encoded with this ability to do exactly the steps that you just described. If you see a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old like in the market, and they're just having a full-on temper tantrum in the market, that they know exactly what they're feeling, they know what they want, they know what they're feeling, and if given what you
Yes.
just described, a little bit of space, making sure they have what they need, like all the things you just described. You will watch a
Yes.
child go through this process that we have to learn as adults. It's natural, it's encoded in us. We're just trained away from it. And
Hmm.
you got to watch your son move through this experience that we are encoded in. So, why I get so geeked out and passionate about the whole thing is because, yeah, we're teaching ourselves and needing to relearn, but this is something that's encoded within us that
Yes.
is here for us, that will bring us into an expanded level of consciousness when we but take the time to do the practice and the tools. So great
I love it.
description.
I know our time is coming to an end. I have two really fine points I wanted to add
Please,
because
please.
one of them you just sparked my memory of. Survival brain often masquerades as our clear thinking brain. So when we were on the phone call and I was like, maybe I'll just give him a hug. That seemed like a really good, practical, realistic idea. So that's the power in having community and somebody to bounce things off of. Because you were like, hell to the no. That's not what you said, but it
I think
was
I did say that.
so to reflect
Hails to
that
the
back,
no.
you know, so survival brain often masquerades as our clear thinking executive brain is one piece. And the other thing that I wanted to make really clear is that knowing these tools and sharing it with my husband has radically changed our relationship,
Mm.
because there were so many times when I would be in survival mode, didn't know what it was. I just knew I wanted to peel the skin off of his face. And he would try to have a really great mansplaining about why I shouldn't feel what I was feeling, and it was missed intersections. So now he knows to identify when I'm in survival mode. He, I'm just giggling. He's out of town right now. And we had something go on the other day, not between us, but he had yummy.com deliver a bag of chocolate to me. I kid you not. Like that just happened yesterday. Um, so my point is,
We
like,
love him.
the fact that our partners know how to be with us from survival brain to emotional, and he knows when I'm in my emotions, don't start coming up with a solution. I don't want a solution right now. I want to tell you how I feel. And then we can both pop into clear thinking executive. So being able to know these tools and share them with our partners, oof, so great.
I mean, so great, right?
Right?
I'm laughing now because, well, Jamie has two famous ones. I'll share one. He always says, "Do you need me to just listen, or do you actually want feedback?" You know? So I love that he even knows to ask that question.
Yes, that's
But
funny.
but yeah, before we wrap up, and for some reason this is just really, it won't quiet itself, so I'm going to share it. There was one moment in, and you described such an arc of processing, and especially I'm going to go to a moment with you and your son that I just think to highlight as a takeaway for everyone listening, because we're all busy, we're all getting inundated with so much information, how to do this, what to do, what not to do. There was a moment when you were sharing about you and your son, and you said you went and you sat near him,
Yeah.
like 8 feet away from him, just kind of tossed over the sweatshirt, had some food. And it won't leave me. It's etched in my heart forever how simple some of
Yes.
these things are. And can everyone listening imagine, had you been a young child
Mm,
and the grown-ups in your orbit had known
yeah.
to go simply sit, you and your mind were like, okay, 6 minutes, we are clearly on the clock here, people. But in his world, his mom was sitting near him with the sweatshirt, with some food, in the silence.
Yes.
He felt his mom's with him. He felt, I'm supported. I'm not alone. She's got me. We're here. I got all the time in the world. You weren't rushed. I mean, that is just such an impeccable moment that I would love everyone to leave with. As busy as we all are, as inundated as we all are, we're all taking notes. We want to do the things. But that moment, I'll always remember it, that you gifted him of getting to have the experience. And it goes back also to your experience with this unwanted attention. had someone back in the day when you were younger
Mm,
known to surround you with some space and compassion and silence. I'm here for you. What do you want to share with me? It all comes back to safety to me. And
yeah.
you created for him a really safe moment that allowed him to then just go be on that bus carefree with his friends.
And it
And
serves us too. When we take that moment, when I'm sitting there next to him, I'm regulating myself, right?
yeah,
And then I can come into a place where, like, okay, if he doesn't want a horseback ride, he doesn't have to horseback ride.
yeah,
Like, so
yeah,
it helps both of us, all of us, when we're
yeah.
regulated.
Yeah. Well, clearly, Julie Moret, I could talk to you and have for hours at a time. And we'll certainly have you back on because there's so many part twos that I have in store for us. And I will
Sweet.
say thank you so much. Clearly, I mean, it's so clear that you are just immersed in this world. You live it, you walk it, you speak it, you practice it. All of your relationships reflect it. You have a teenager that follows you on social media. Need I say more? That can be your headliner on your next bio you
I'm
send
not
out.
blocked.
Like, yeah, you've been knighted and all the things, Jack Canfield, but your teenager follows you on social media. But
Yes.
in all seriousness, everyone, please do yourself a favor. Go to juliemoret.com. I will have all her information, all her social media is right there in your show notes. Do yourself a favor, go click. As Julie said, you have been a longtime beloved speaker at the Agape International Spiritual Center, of which Michael Bernard Beckwith is both our teachers and mentor and colleague and friend, and we love and honor him. But do yourself a favor, go and watch. You're just a really insightful speaker. You have a way of blending inspiration with the real grit of going home and practicing it. So please give yourself this favor, buy your book, What's Your What, How to Ignite Your Own Unique Brand. So much wealth of information. Is there anything in particular that you have coming up, or any particular place or way that you'd like to channel people to find you in particular?
I think Instagram, Rev Julie Moret, Moret, is probably the best way. I'm going to be teaching a class with a lot of these tools at Agape in, I think, July, August. So
Yep.
I can share then. And
Great
I want to
title.
start doing more gives, on Instagram, just kind of going through like what we just did, just some simple practices on a more regular basis. So that's probably the best place.
Yeah. And I'll have all of your Instagram, I'll have everything in the show notes. And then for sure, everybody, DM me, email me, let me know what parts of this conversation were your takeaways, were more delicious and juicy, what you want to hear more of, because I need to have you back. We're not done yet.
And we didn't even burn any Spanx today, so we
We
got to
didn't
we
burn
got to
any
cover that also.
spanks. I love you, and I'm deeply grateful for you. So much respect and admiration and love. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you. Love
here.
you too. So grateful.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Give yourselves permission to thrive this week, and I'll see you next week. Much love. Thank you so much for listening. If there was something in this conversation that spoke to you, we'd so appreciate it if you would take the time to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this episode with women and mothers you know, because you are here to thrive. See you next time.